time, so I shouldn't do that.
I have the question for you.
Okay.
What is it like playing the character where you have to walk the line from truth and fiction and lying to your best friends and trying to keep a good face on all of it? And how do you think your character maintains his sanity?
Well, I think one thing that we've seen, great question. One thing we've seen this season with Major is that he has had an extremely difficult time walking that line and keeping his sanity. I mean, we saw he, went into a pretty dark hole with the Utopium, which to me, I've never viewed Major as a drug addict. I think that was more symptomatic of the fact that he was just in that much pain and that much misery that it was sort of any way to escape, his life for 20, 30 minutes, an hour. That was it. You know what I mean? Which I think is why we didn't make a meal of it. It kind of came and went pretty quickly, which I respected that the show didn't try to make it some big thing. It was like, no, this is just a guy who is really struggling and he doesn't really have the skill set to deal with it. And one thing that I liked about Major is I think that struggle speaks to, I think, a high level of integrity and character, because if it was really easy for him to breeze through lying to everyone he cared about in the face of all that, then what does that say about the value he places on his word and the respect he has for these other people? So I liked that it was not easy for him, and that also selfishly, but as an actor, it made it easier for me because I was raised Catholic, so I suck with lies, and I'm an Olympic level guilt tripper. So I was able to identify and sort of put myself in his shoes.
We see a very brief reunion with Liv and Major. Will we see more of that in the future?
What was the first part of that? You see what?
We see a very brief reunion with Liv and Major. So will we be seeing more of that coming up?
I sure hope so. I think
What you can tell
a lot of ways. Yeah, no. Well, in a lot of ways, I think Liv and Major are sort of the Sam and Diane kind of the show. That's sort of where we started off, and we saw how great it was at one point. So I think that wasn't an accident that scene was there. I think that was sort of put there to show how good things were at one point. And I think that's something, always when you have a relationship that's worked great but fell apart for reasons outside of the two of you having a genuine conflict, you always do want to try to get back to that, I think, And so I think we have not seen it. And I don't say that like twisting my mustache like there's anything big, but from the get-go, Rob said, I think that's something they'll always be interested in, always be sort of fighting for one level or another, but as we've seen lately, it has not been too easy or convenient for them.
Kind of like they're weaving in and out constantly. Like you said, as a touch point, there's going separate ways, coming back again, leveling, coming back.
And I think there's an interesting thing with Major where sometimes when you're in a good relationship, you really love that version of yourself. I can look back to relationships I was in, and I was like, I liked that version of Rob. And I think when that little glimpse we saw of the two of them together, they both seem to be in a great place. And so in some ways, they are fighting for a relationship, but you're almost fighting just to get back to that place of that ease, that comfort, that happiness,
What about Major's relationship with Robbie?
Oh, they're definitely going to stay hot and heavy. Not a doubt. In what regards?
Well, I just meant what you talked about how with Liv, this is a version of Major, like maybe the best version of himself or a version of himself that he likes. What kind of Major is Major with Robbie? How is that different from the Major that he is with Liv?
That's one of my favorite versions of Major because again, it's selfishly as the actor, there's very little acting that's going on between the two of us. If you could see, what's happening the 10 seconds before they call action and the 10 seconds after, there's a lot more laughter, but it's the same dynamic. So much of what Ravi and Major have become on the show was because the writers saw our friendship in real life and thought, well, why don't we just sort of cater to that? The video games, the comics, the geeking out, all of that. We now live in the same building. It's not quite the same apartment, but the same building. So, there's a lot of that. And it's funny because at times, though, I have to really remind myself to be professional because we'll be doing a scene and there'll be like some levity, some real some real weight to the scene, and they're like, and we're sound speeding, and of course they're like laughing. I'm like, oh my god, wait a second, we have to be professional here, so hold on. Okay, you're pregnant? Whatever it is. But it's a lot of fun.
Where would you like the character to go? Like, if you had control over what happens to Major next, what would you love to see happen with him?
That's a good question. I think it'd be fun to see like full-blown zombie Major. I think it's something that I enjoy every week watching Liv, transforming. In fact, she's like the episode where she did Kung Fu, and she has that like Matrix moment where she's like, I know Kung Fu. It's like, oh my god, I would love that. Or when she, eats the, he was an Army Ranger, I believe, right? He wasn't a Green Beret, he was an Army Ranger, and she's sitting there, getting sharpshooting, and I'm like, and that's just something in my personal life I love, I have such interest in, so I was like, oh, that'd be great. So I think to get to sort of try on a new hat each week, and explore that with Major would be a lot of fun. Plus, I've grown up on comics, I love comics, so I would love to, get to have my own little version of hulking out.
What was your favorite comic growing up?
I came up on X-Men. When Jim Lee and Chris Claremont did the reboot in what was it, 92? That was like a seminal moment for me. Yeah, right. And so I was big X-Men. As I've gotten older, my tastes have gotten a little darker. Like I like someone with a bit more drama. So like Daredevil, I was drawn to quite a bit. Boom, great shirt. Yep, awesome. But I've also tried to sort of break away from some of the mainstream characters and find like newer titles that I'm into. I mean, there's a couple. There's a Vertigo title called Clean Room right now. Gail Simone writes. There's a beautiful book called Pretty Deadly that is fantastic. Doesn't come out fast enough for my taste. No, so there you go. One more question. One more question. Quick question.
I was going to ask, how do we think the relationship's going to keep going between Vaughn and Major? Because so far he's lucky and he's escaped all of the potential traps.
I know. How much do you guys love Vaughn? I have such an off-camera, love affair with Stephen Weber. In fact, we were just texting today because I was just like, I miss you. He's the best. Honestly, I hope that one goes forever. Even though he's a bad guy and not doing good things, like, I root for him. How great was he in last week's episode? When not Leanne, that's actually his name, but Gilda Rita is running towards the door and he's like, the door's shut, and I was like, oh, he's so good.
Because they give you like a glimpse of humanity with him when she's at the glass door of his room.
Yeah.
He's just like this look on his face, like, will he open it? Oh, hell no.
Because he's that good. I mean, our first scene together, because I remember him from Wings, and he was. I know. Okay, I'm sorry, but it was the most surreal moment. Like, oh my god, I'm working with Steven Weber. Try to be professional, but thank you all for your time.